Welcome back to Recharge. Today we're going to talk about some movement stuff that we've been working on with our community for the last year and a half now that we think works really well for people coming back from a history of injury or have had low back, hip pain, knee pain, any of those types of things for the squat specifically. So what we're trying to do here is make sure that when you squat, you feel good. Above all else, we want to make sure that you leave feeling appropriately good and working the things that we should be working. So here's a step-by-step process for us to walk you through what we do for all our members here based on their individual history of injury and experience of training. So first and foremost, we look at everybody's air squat initially, which is just a squat without anything. It gives us a good idea of where we want to be, and then we can also highlight when we talk about angles when we're looking at the air squat. So as we air squat, especially from the side here is the best view to videotape yourself. As you squat down, what we're aiming for is the angle of the torso, so this line right here, and the angle of my shin to be fairly parallel. In terms of, if I were to squat down like this line here would intersect with the line from my torso. So if you see on video those two lines intersecting, you know there's some things you need to change. That's the ideal kind of angles that we're looking for to make a squat comfortable. So if you can't reach that with just an air squat, a great way to look at that then is to add in some parameters to help you get there. Here's how we can set that up for you and make sure that you squat feeling great. The first thing we look at is the ankles, and it's usually the culprit for many of us. But something very easy to do is one, either get some heel inserts, or our favorite thing to do and the easiest one is to take plates that are about that thick or a board or whatever you have at home, and you're going to set it down in the exact positions where your feet would be for your squatting. So what you want to have here then is your ankles on top of those plates, not your whole foot and not your toes on them, but just your ankles. That way it lifts your ankles up a little bit, gives you more room for air and more mobility. So then from here I can test. If I squat down and videotape myself, are my angles of my torso and my shins the same? And that's what we're aiming for in that respect. If so, perfect. That's a great modification for you to squat either air squats or with load to allow you to feel solid and feel good. Now, if the heel plates work, perfect. But sometimes people need a target so they can get their center of balance and mass appropriately when they're squatting down. Easy way that we do that is just sticking a medicine ball on top of a plate here to get up to a certain height. You can also use a bench like we have over here if that works a little bit easier for you. Whatever you're looking for, again, we're aiming for those angles to be relatively parallel to one another from the torso to the shin. It also gives somebody confidence to kind of sit back into their hips. So you can do it with or without the plates, and you're simply just looking for them to tap down and come back up. Reach for the ball or the target and come back up. Now, the best thing about this is if there's mobility restrictions, your hip feels goofy, your back feels goofy, you can bring that height up. You don't have to go below parallel when you first start to squat. Give your body a chance to adapt to that over time. Yes, you want to get towards parallel or a little below eventually, but you don't have to right away. Set yourself up for success based on your lines, and then slowly work your way down to that depth over the period of time. Nobody squatted 500 pounds on their first day in the gym. You don't have to either. You just need to feel good and be sustainable with it. So now let's take a look at the technique and the position of the feet and the legs when we go into the squat. All right. Technique-wise, if you were in gym class back in the day, they probably told you feet forward, hip width apart, this is where you need to squat at all times. We now know that's just not the case. We need to be able to squat in a position that feels appropriate for our hips. All of us have different bony hip anatomy. We need to respect that. So for some of us, we might feel really, really good out wide. For some of us, it might be narrow. In addition, our feet might be turned in or out at a certain degree, depending on what. All that we really care about is that you find a position for you that feels most natural when you're going up and down. Now, the best part about this might change with training, right? As you begin to squat more and more and get more active, you might develop a more narrow stance with feet forward. You might go a little bit wider and feet a little turned out. It changes over the course of our lifetime as our bodies develop. So always having a thumb on How do I feel when I squat? What's most natural to me is going to be the best case scenario for you. So find a hip position of your legs being wide or narrow that feels natural, and find a foot position either in or slightly out that feels most natural to you as well. If you do those two things and you combine it with a solid technique of sitting down into my hips and down, you're going to be in a really good spot in addition to the other constraints you put on your squat for yourself. So finally, let's go over the progression of weighted squats so you know where to start yourself when you're getting into strength training. We all know we want to squat with some weight. We get it, and you know what? It's great for us, for our knees, for our hips, for our back, for everything. Let's give a general progression of where to start and where to go from there as you work through weights. The best place to start is going to be with a kettlebell. A goblet squat held in this position, or like this, is probably the most user-friendly place to start. One, it puts a limit on how much weight you can do, and two, it puts the weight out in front of you, so you're going to have a better chance at keeping your center of mass and gravity as you're squatting down. So what I'm going to show you is a progression from the kettlebell to the barbell lift to show you this is where you start and some variables you can do. So a goblet squat, you could potentially have a setup of a target and heel plates to make sure that you feel good. As I sit back and down, I'm hitting my target and I'm coming back up through that. Again, I'm looking to feel my legs and my butt, right? Looking to feel my glutes and my quads when I'm squatting through this. If you feel like your muscles are working and there's nothing else, perfect. A great variable to mess with goblet squats is simply the speed of which you go. So play with the tempo of going down for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And up for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When in doubt, put a tempo into the squat. It'll make it infinitely more difficult. Now most people want to get into barbell lifting and completely understand. That's usually the next step of where we go after the goblet squat foundational steps of building up some strength. Now, usually the best place to start for people is having the weight out in front again, and that's a front squat position, in which we come through here and we work into a front rack and perform the similar type of squat that we just were before. Elbows high, front rack down and up, coming through, okay? Now the kicker is, although that's easier for your hips, your back, and your body to maintain a more upright position, it's usually difficult for most of us who have wrist, shoulder, and back kind of mobility restrictions to really receive that in position. So I usually use this to start off with at light weights and work our way up. Now, what you'll see mostly is the coveted back squat. Why we wait for this for last is because it's the most demanding, because the weight's behind you and your center of mass generally, and you want to be able to work up to it gradually. So this is the last one we usually build people into, but the same applies. I get through here, I come underneath, I get myself set. I can still use my plates and my target if I need to for even a back squat. Get my body set into my position that's unique to myself. Come down, squat, hit my target, and come back up. No matter which one of those you're doing, you'll notice the squat technique should be fairly similar to all three of them. But most importantly, it should feel good. If you're trying to make this sustainable and really trying to make this long-term strength for yourself, think about how you feel. Do I feel like my muscles are working? Or am I just kind of straining at my joints or other parts of my body and it just doesn't make me feel good the next day? If so, play around with a target, with heel plates, or perhaps your foot position or technique, or maybe start off with a goblet squat for a foundation. If you do those things, we're giving you a high likelihood that you'll enjoy squatting a little bit more, you'll be able to do it sustainably, and you'll see small strength gains over time. So that's it for here from Recharge. If you need to check any of our other content out, please check us out on YouTube at RechargeXFit. Check out our website at rechargexfit.com, or look us up on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook as RechargeXFit. So thanks for checking in. Tune in next week when we go over the same thing of how you can feel good with the deadlift.